The key to optimizing your plant's performance starts with consistent, efficient substrates. Hydrofiber from Profile Growing Solutions is a highly engineered media that helps provide better growing across a wide variety of crops. The fibers easily blend with other mixed components and help to provide optimum airspace and maximum water efficiency so your plants can achieve maximum success. Unlock your growing potential with consistent and efficient hydrofiber. Learn more at profilegrowing.com. Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Laura Barth is the research coordinator at American Floral Endowment, which has been monitoring the impacts of federal funding cuts on horticulture research. In this episode, I talked to Laura about the uncertainties being felt at many institutions, how American Floral Endowment can be a funding resource for research, how AFE's endowment works, and AFE's upcoming Rise to Support fundraising campaign. Here's our conversation. So, Laura, I know that American Floral Endowment has been tracking very closely, what's happening with the status of university research funding nowadays. So I want to kick the conversation off with a survey that American Floral Endowment recently put together to, ask university horticulture faculty about what's happening with funding for research and cuts and funding freezes and all that. Can you kind of talk about the purpose behind this survey, what some of your goals were, and how things have kind of moved forward with that so far?
Yeah. So this came about as a discussion after our recent board meeting. Um, like the people you've interviewed in your recent articles on the current administration, some of the challenges, our board recognized that there would probably, be some uncertainty or issues with the federal funding cuts or suspensions in regard to university research programs.
Yeah.
And so since one of our main core programs is funding university research, we thought it would be very important to reach out to faculty and just kind of get a sense for, what they're feeling right now, how they're dealing with this, like what challenges they're facing.
Yeah.
And so, well, we're not planning to do like a big release of the results just yet. We found that there was actually a surprising amount of variability in how different universities and how different programs were affected. But one thing that was the same across the board just was the uncertainty and the future of some of these federal grants.
Okay. Yeah, I had a conversation recently with somebody who was the chair of a horticulture department who, again, is facing some of these issues. And one of the things that they were talking about, they share research facility with USDA. So they made the decision to start the process of shifting a lot of their lab research and greenhouse research on campus, so they wouldn't have to, deal with the potential of, a facility being closed temporarily or permanently. So yeah, we're seeing that as well.
Wow. Yeah, and I think there's going to be impacts too, like not just on individual programs, but on, entire departments dealing with staffing changes or, all kinds of impacts.
Yeah. And I think the key word that you mentioned there was uncertainty. And again, we're kind of hearing the same thing. What's going to happen as we start to move forward? And I know, when you and I have been talking about this, in a lot of separate conversations, this is leading a lot of organizations like AFE to look for different ways to fund research. What are you guys working on in terms of that whole challenge right now?
So yeah, one thing that we're doing, I think, is just trying to tell our story of what we do. So, just the history of our research funding.
Yeah.
How the endowment works to fund research. One thing we're sharing too is that, we think we're going to see a higher number of proposals this year. So for those of you who don't know, the Gleckner Foundation is now under AFE as its own research fund.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, and I think largely in result of some of the funding uncertainty, we saw over 2 times the amount of proposals come in this year versus last year.
Okay.
I think that's an indication of what we're going to see for our research proposals.
Mhm.
So yes, we are trying to increase funding for our core programs. And one way that we're doing this actually right now, we just launched it on May 15th.
Okay.
Is our Rise to Support annual fundraising campaign. And Rise is actually an acronym for our core programs. So
Okay.
research, internships, scholarships, and education.
Yeah.
And so any donations that come in kind of help offset our our operating costs so we can use more dollars for things like supporting university research.
Okay. How is AFE reaching out to those in the industry from all different segments of the industry to communicate some of these, various programs that AFE is now working on?
So we are definitely expanding our outreach. One way that we're doing this is through these conversations with you. Those
Yeah.
very helpful. We're trying to increase our industry articles. So we are excited to have an article in Grower Talks coming up this summer that's going to share just some of AFE's research highlights that have impacted growers through the years. Um, really trying to, social media is a huge one. We have a media intern who will be coming on this summer to help our staff just with some of the social media posts because we always promote our internships and scholarships and the students involved in those awards that way too.
Yeah.
Being present at industry events is another way that I think is a really powerful tool for us because then we can just communicate with stakeholders and with the industry directly.
Yeah. Well, and to your point too, and I know, we were talking about this before we started this part of the conversation was, there are conversations that need to happen about the future of research funding. And, it's one of a separate conversation I was having with somebody a couple of months back. There was concern that, with the on again, off again cuts and freezes, et cetera, that, we look at the long-term future of building the next generation of researchers. And, is that under threat because somebody doesn't want to come into it, not knowing if they're going to be able to have the support to do the research that they need on behalf of the industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is definitely one of the things that we have been concerned about. We talked about it at our board meeting extensively, and it's always been one of our priorities is how we can fund the next generation. And so, you know, our research funding, a lot of what we do, a lot of that funding, does support graduate students. And so I think that
Yeah.
just highlights the importance of, even though there are these, there is this uncertainty with the federal funding situation right now, you know, AFE is providing kind of a valuable service, not only in funding dollars, but also supporting the next generation. Because a lot of our projects do support a grad student doing the work.
Yeah. Well, and that's so great that AFE is responding to this and being proactive because, the fact that AFE has been funding research for 60 years now, and you've always relied on the industry support, that's never going to go away. So it's really just a matter of adapting to what's happening, looking at all the external market forces and how can we respond in a proactive way to continue what we're doing. I do want to talk also about the actual endowment and kind of how that process works. Can you kind of go through that process?
Sure. So, yeah, we are a nonprofit organization, and how the endowment works is that donations from the industry build the principal endowment fund that we don't touch, that stays there. So the principal is protected, invested, and it grows. And so we operate with 5% of the fund's growth, which is the interest earnings.
Sure.
And that 5% is allocated for our annual budget, which is used for research and programs. And so to kind of put this in perspective, just thinking about research and the importance of industry donations to the endowment,
Yeah.
5%. So let's say we have a $50,000 for 1 year research project.
Right.
That's 5% of $1 million.
Mm.
So, funding research this way, it takes a lot of support to do that. And so that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations with the industry and just show them what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and as you look ahead too, and I know you mentioned the April editorial that ran in Greenhouse Grower magazine, a lot of it was, you might not see the impacts now of what happens with what's happening now, but you look years down the road when there isn't the support, research that starts now, the industry sees the benefit from it 5-10 years down the road.
Exactly.
So that's when you're really going to start seeing the impacts, I think, of these funding challenges that we're all facing.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
Okay. Can you talk about, and I know you mentioned the Rise to Support program, other ways to donate and support American Floral Endowment?
Yep. So there, you can go to our website and it lists different ways to donate. So I like our Rise campaign because there's just different levels you can donate at. There are, you could go from 360 all the way up to, over $5,000. Hold on.
Right.
Pause for a sec while I get the number.
Of course.
So yeah, our Rise campaign I think it's a very accessible way to donate
Yeah.
because there's different sponsorship levels. So you can come in as a copper sponsor, which is $360, a one-time donation of $360. Or new for this year, we have offered monthly donation options for our copper, bronze, and silver sponsor levels. So you take opt to have a monthly donation instead of a one-time donation, which I think is pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And so that one, I think that's a really easy and accessible way to donate. And it's kind of fun because our board members get pretty competitive about it. And so, there's just a lot of passion, but it's all for the industry and it's really exciting to see. But there are ways that you could, if you want to make a larger donation, you could create a named fund. And so some of our larger industry donors have done that, where they'll make a donation of the start a fund. It starts at $50,000, and then you can designate that for research or for scholarships or whatever area you want to focus on. So yeah, we have all kinds of opportunities from small up till very large, and everybody's support is, no matter what level, is appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. And I understand too that AFE just recently opened its next research application portal for this year. And it sounds like you guys are also, having new ways to learn more about and then submit proposals for research. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so we in anticipation of a higher number of proposals this year, we are opening our research portal early. Usually it opens on June 1st, but I think should be open right now to start accepting proposals. And we're also trying to offer some new resources to help our applicants just create a strong proposal.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. We recently did an interview with John Dole from NC State and Michelle Jones from The Ohio State University, and they provided their tips and tricks for creating a winning research proposal. And I also have a newly updated video that goes over the application process and some frequently asked questions. And we're turning all of those into, shorter clips for social media too, in case you just want to see a short video on some of these topics and not watch the whole thing.
Okay. And for those listening to this, we'll have those links available to those videos and other resources on greenhousegrower.com for folks to learn more and to really dig into the process. So I want to kind of go back right to the beginning of the conversation. So you talked about the survey that's currently going on at the university level. When do you see those results starting to potentially roll out, even if it's going to be kept anonymous in some cases?
I'm not sure. We're still kind of assessing that. I think for now, we're just going to, just keep watching things and see how they develop and, determine our response from there. But I will say that the results have been very helpful for us and just kind of seeing how we can best provide support for our academic partners.
Okay. I think what I'd like to do is, as we start to wind down this conversation, I'm going to put in a personal plea for those who are listening. When you go to an event like Cultivate, you're going to see either direct members of American Floral Endowment or researchers that work very closely with American Floral Endowment. Go up to them, thank them, support them. As we said, research in this industry is something that it starts now and you see the results down the road. And that research is critical to every segment of this industry, whether it's plant breeders, whether it's growers, whether it's the suppliers who develop the products for those growers. None of that has a future without the research that takes place in the industry to learn more about what this industry needs in the long term and where they need and what the steps that they have to take to get there. So again, as you go to an event like Cultivate, support those folks who are doing this research, support American Floral Endowment as much as you can, go to their website to learn more. Laura, I'm really glad that we had a chance to have this conversation because AFE does so much important work that a lot of it takes place behind the scenes. It's important for this industry to learn more about how that whole process works.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the support.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.